Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Tom. How are you?
Good, you?
Good, good. Morning, Debbie.
Good morning.
So Jen, I double checked with Todd to make sure that he got the email and that it's not showing up in spam. And he hasn't responded, so hopefully we're all set there. Good morning, Bobby Joe.
Morning.
Okay, now I can hear you, Jen. Looked like you were talking. I don't know if you were trying to say something.
I could just hear you.
You were cut off. Now you're on.
But you can hear me now?
Now I can hear you. Yep.
I'm having some audio issues.
Good morning, Mr. Manikowski.
Hello.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Good. Can you hear me okay, Lynn?
We sure can.
Oh, thanks. Good. How are you?
Excellent. Houston, we have audio and video. We're good so far.
Good. Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't make it over. I got a thing in Victor right after this, so figured I don't want to be running around too much.
No worries. We get it. I'm sharing a vehicle with my son for these last few weeks. So he not only was he in an accident on one of the slippery days, but then he had a mishap with the rental car.
Oh boy. Oh
Yeah.
boy. Is he all right?
So everyone's safe. Yep, everyone's okay. But boy, it sure gives you appreciation when you don't have your own vehicle
Oh boy, I tell you.
all the time.
Yeah, I hear you. That's a huge deal when you don't have a vehicle. No doubt about that.
Yep. So thankfully, I'm mostly first shift. He's second shift. So we've been able to car share successfully.
Well, that's good. That's good. So we have mostly remote, then I would take it this morning.
Yeah, I think between both, the roads are clear, but still there's a bunch of snow out there and just the heightened infection rate.
Right.
Has got us. Yeah.
Yeah, that was some snow. That was an old fashioned snowstorm. We haven't had anything like that in a while.
Yeah, it sure was. It sure was.
I know we're not started yet, Lynn, but how are we doing on membership? I know we haven't had a governance committee meeting for a while.
Yeah, so we are on track with ITT. We have a meeting with them in February. They needed to hire some HR folks, and they anticipate having that position filled in February. So we're going to have a meeting with them in February, get an update then. But looks like we'll be moving forward with them at that point.
Excellent. That's good to hear.
Yes.
Will that get us where we pretty much full?
And then we're full.
Excellent.
Good morning, Erica. Good morning, Rick. Good morning, Andrea.
Howdy.
Hey, Rick. I don't know if it applies to us, Lynn, but the governor did sign a bill that allows for remote meetings to continue and to count. It was supposed to expire last week. And IDAs and, our Economic Development Corporation, it would have pushed us back to in-person meetings. But fortunately, a bill was put forward and she signed it. So we're back to, remote meetings are okay.
Yep, we were anticipating it was going to go that way and waiting for the next continuation
Yeah.
on of that.
It did. So everything is remote for the time being until I guess the Commissioner of Health declares it's not needed.
Yep, that's good.
Yep.
Good morning, Julie. Good morning, Drea.
Morning.
Good morning, Mike Davis.
Morning, how we doing?
Well, how are you, sir?
We're up and at it,
That's all right.
so. How's everybody else faring?
Hey, pretty good, Mike. How are you?
Not bad.
Good morning, Eileen.
Morning.
You might need to add some dance music here while we're waiting, get people energized and ready.
That's what you do miss from the in-person meetings, especially the WIB meetings. We'd always have a chance to talk, have coffee, breakfast, it would be a good warm-up.
For sure, for sure. Good morning, Bob Coyne. Good morning, Roderick.
Good morning.
Good morning, Joe Pellerite.
Recording in progress.
Good morning, Julia.
Getting off camera here.
Good morning, Zach. Good morning,
Good
Rick.
morning.
Rick Hauser. Good morning, Sarah. Good morning, Mitch.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Kathy Baker. Good morning, Pete Beckes.
Morning, how are you?
Well, how are you?
Doing just fine. A little snowy, but that's all right.
How much snow did you guys get? You're right on the lake.
Foot and a half,
Nice.
little less.
Good morning, Jennifer.
Hi, Lynn. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Good morning, Lori. Good morning, Danielle.
Morning, everyone. I have a silly question before we get started. Don't everybody laugh at once. The resolutions that we're looking at on the agenda, were they out there in the board resources? Or attached to an email somewhere, Jen? You're muted.
The resolutions are in the meeting resources.
Okay, I'm looking. Thank you.
I just want to say good morning. Sorry about that. I couldn't get to it.
I see them now. Thank you.
All right, I think I missed a couple people, so good morning to everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. And Mr. Chairperson, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Morning, everybody. Got a good turnout this morning. Looks like everybody's back to work here in 2022, so that's good. Jen, you want to do a roll call? Make sure we know who's here.
Debbie is actually going to do roll call. I'm having audio issues on my end.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Okay. Kathy Baker. Pete Beckes. Oh, I'm sorry,
I'm
Kathy?
here.
Yes.
Okay, great.
It's here.
And I heard Pete, Lina Brennan. Zach Brooks,
Here.
Sarah Bruzy. Robert Coyne,
Here.
Mike Davis,
Here.
Jennifer DeVault,
Yes.
Randy D'Antonio. Okay, Bob Doblin, I know isn't here. Sarah Amy,
Here.
Tom Facer,
Here.
Rick House,
Here.
Michelle Jungerman,
Here.
Julie Maslin,
Here.
Mike Kaufman, Danielle Malloy,
Here.
Mike Manikowski,
Here,
Julie Murphy,
I'm here.
Dr. Nye, I think is gone, Lori Parrish, here, Joe Pellerite. I'm pretty sure I saw him.
Bonnie Percy. We saw Rick. Dr. Ramos. Christy Rolo.
Here.
Mitch Rowe.
Here.
Mike Rosinko. Jim Sinacropi. Eileen Tiberio. And Erica Wright.
Here.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, so we do have a quorum.
Yes.
Very good. So housekeeping, Lynn, is there anything you want to address there?
Nope, we're all set.
And how about you want to make a comment about the meeting evaluation and
Yes, in preparation, Rick, for your stepping down at the end of this WIB year, which would be June 30th, we are in need of both a chairperson and a vice chair. Lori Parrish will be stepping down at the same time. So if anyone has any interest, please just shoot me an email or give me a call. I'm happy to go through the requirements and what's needed. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. Yeah, it's been especially challenging here during the pandemic to, build relationships, but we'll do what we can. With regard to economic news, who wants to chime in here? Don't all jump at once.
Well, I'll start, Rick.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah, I mean, still, the overriding concern is the great resignation and the unavailability of workers and workforce. I think it's changing a little bit, but not as fast as one would hope. So that's what we're seeing from the economic development side. Continual, interest from our strategic businesses and our, especially tourism, hospitality, healthcare, the great need for a workforce. And so I'll just open it up with that from an issue standpoint. It's been ongoing for quite a while now, but I just want to put it out there. It still continues.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I'll just build on that. From the advanced manufacturing perspective here in our region, companies are quite busy. There are a few supply chain issues, but the biggest problem is building workforce. As you mentioned, it's been called the silver tsunami. A lot of people have retired here during the pandemic. The other issue that I was unaware of until I joined the WIB and started looking at demographic data, here in the Finger Lakes region, the number of young people, the number of kids graduating high school declines by 50% between 2010 and 2025. So we're almost all the way there, where there are fewer teenagers or young adults coming in, in our community than there were 10 or 15 years ago. And this is also creating issues with companies that tend to pay minimum wage, like the Roseland Water Park last summer couldn't open full time because they couldn't get enough workers. And a lot of other businesses are having similar issues, particularly in the fast food or restaurant sector. Somebody from healthcare want to weigh in for us?
Sure, Jennifer. The tune is the same. Too many patients, sick patients, not enough healthcare workers, not enough support workers. Our cafeteria has now closed after we kept it open for the first year and a half of the pandemic. We also are seeing kind of a second wave of retirements. When the pandemic first started, those that weren't up to it did leave, and the next couple months are going to bring a big hit to the health system as some of our really talented tenured staff get your breath and leave and set priorities a little bit differently. We're obviously trying to invest in the small workforce that we have, trying to further their education and help them pursue healthcare careers, trying to provide them extra tuition support, trying to provide them stipends to allow them time to go to school. We're really trying to invest in them and kind of handcuff them to Thompson, try to get them to commit, because there's not a lot of new coming. So we'd rather work with what we have. And then we're trying to redesign work and make sure that everyone's working at the top of their license, and where possible, if we need to go without an LPN and get a tech in a role where we need to do that because there aren't enough LPNs. So we're just trying to redesign work to the best of our ability.
Rick, this is Eileen. If I could kind of weigh in on what you said about losing the young people. One of the major problems we're experiencing is there is really, at least in Ontario County, I can't speak for the other counties, a real shortage of housing. You know, so that when young people graduate from college, finding an affordable house or even an apartment is becoming really critical. And so that's one of the factors contributing to young people not staying. There's just no place for a young college graduate who's at the beginning of their career and not making a lot of money. There isn't a lot of housing available for them. So that's becoming a much more critical issue here.
And I'll jump in on that too. We're seeing, Rick, what you said in terms of the fewer number of teenagers. We're seeing that in higher education across the board. We have for many years, we call it sort of the great enrollment cliff. And for us, you know, one of our core programs used to be the RN to BSN program, which is a program for nurses with an associate's degree. And as you might imagine, nurses right now are not really thinking about going back to school with all the copious amounts of free time that they have. So that's what it's like over here in higher ed.
Okay, thanks,
I'd like
Pete.
to throw something in to piggyback off what Eileen just said about housing shortage for young people. If you recall, a while ago, WIB was sort of involved, I think, in the Finger Lakes Housing Summit. And one of the things that we addressed, I believe, in that summit was that exact point. And that was going back, I think we're going back almost 10 years now to when that happened. Maybe it's time to revisit that topic. And I don't know how WIB can be involved, but I know that Marty Teller, who is now retired, was the one that got that summit together for a couple of years. And I don't know if we can take a lead in that role somehow with one of our committees. But I'm throwing it out there as an idea.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lori. I'll do some research on that and follow up. Thank you.
Just, Jen, for FYI, Marty's role in that was as chair of the Housing Continuum of Care. And Jen Carlson at FLCC now leads that. It's a 4-county group. So, you know, I sit on that board, as does Bob Doblin. So, you know, we can certainly be resources for you around that.
Great. I was hoping somebody had taken over where Marty left off.
Okay, thank you. Anybody from Ag that wants to share with us?
I can share. Vineyard side right now, things are obviously quite quiet. We just started pruning. We do bring in H2A guys that will be coming in February. We have, you know, we post the job and we don't get any applications within the United States for vineyard work. Surprise, surprise. In the winery side, tasting rooms are quiet. We're dealing with increases in glass prices. So as we start bottling things, we're looking at, you know, anywhere from a 10 to 15%, possibly even more. I just got the prices yesterday and I'm afraid to look at the spreadsheet. And label supply, labels keep getting pushed back because there's a little bit of a delay in getting supplies. So, but other than that, things are good.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
This is Julie Maslin, coming from the farm side of things. Dairies in particular, you know, with their Hispanic help, are still relying on Hispanic help, but there is a lot of shortage in workers for the shop side of things. There's a lot of holes in people's shop crews, which tends to be more American workers. So there's a lot of mobility somewhere.
Okay, thank you. All
I
right.
could
Anybody
say
else?
I could just jump in on the construction side. I mean, construction is strong. I think it's really around the country that way for the most part. Manpower is short. We have the same, trouble with, and I'm sure Mike Davis could say a few words about that, but it's, getting people is become very difficult, as well as, the younger apprentices that we try to bring into the program. The supply chain is slowing everything up on the construction side. So, I mean, it's all good. Work is, we have, if anybody wants a job, it's there for them. But it does have its struggles like everything else. So, but really all is good on that front.
Okay.
Good problems to have, I guess.
Mike, Mike Davis, you want to share with us? I know there's a lot of talk nationwide about workforce development, and maybe we'll have you comment and then go to Bob Coyne.
Yeah, we remain busy. We're a little slow right here in this area, but to the west and east of us is booming. So a lot of our guys are going and working there. And we've got a bunch of work that's going to start probably in the next couple of months. We hit a little bit of a lull, but we're still looking for a lot of people. Not only that, with the solar home factory getting ready to be put in, we're going to be looking for factory workers too. We're going to have to expand my local union by about 75 to 80 people over the course of the next 2 years. So it's definitely crunch time for us. There's no other way to put it. And the toughest part is you got to train them before you can really put them out there. So
Yeah, that's a happy problem. So about another 80 jobs.
yeah, they're looking to probably put 2 shifts on, and it's going to be like 100 people over the course of the next 2 years. They're going to break ground on that factory sometime in early spring or fall. It's a moving target now, but it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Bob, you want to give us an update from your perspective?
Sure, Rick, thank you. Again, it's a consistent message that there's definitely a labor shortage. And the good news is that there are some programs that are starting to gain ground, and there are people that are starting to show interest, primarily the K through 12 schools. For the last 15 years or so, they really have focused on other things than providing some of their student body with the right skill sets to enter the workforce in the careers that we're talking about, that can pay above livable wage and allow them to have a great career. So, there continues to be growth. You look at Amazon, they're putting in a new distribution center on Manitou Road up here in Gates, and they're looking to hire over 1,000 people, and over 10% of them are going to need to be skilled trades, electricians, electrical mechanical technicians, and automation technicians, because not everyone is in there pulling parts manually. So the sad news is, I think for the next couple of years, the labor market is still going to be tight to hire people, because I think what's going to happen is they're going to steal from one company to fill the role of another. The Finger Lakes Youth Apprenticeship Program is having a banner year this year. We've got almost 300 students that have applied for the program, and over 100 employers that are participating. And that's all throughout the Finger Lakes region. So we're down in Wayne Finger Lakes, Stanley. We're up in Niagara, Orleans. We're in Batavia. We got Spenceport, BOCES, Fairport, BOCES, East High, Edison Tech, and the city schools. And then we're going to do a separate session down near Penn Yan after spring, like in the March area. We went down there and talked to the students down there, and we're going to do a special smaller session down there. So the students are starting to participate. The problem is it doesn't solve the problem today, right? This is a long-term solution. Unfortunately, I don't have an immediate short-term solution, but I think we're heading in the right direction.
All right, thanks, Bob. All right, last chance.
Can I
Anybody
throw one
else?
more thing in, Rick, before we
Yep.
move on?
Please do.
What I'm hearing from all of these, one of the outcomes I'm seeing in my head is that we have to be cognizant of how these small businesses in our region are going to be able to continue to bear the costs of increased wages and benefits for the people they're hiring in the kind of workforce that we're pulling from. You know, the increase in wage demand has created a little bit of a problem, I think, that is going to get worse before it gets better, as other people have said. And I don't know, as a workforce investment board, if there's something we should pay attention to in order to facilitate tools for the employers and an understanding on the employee side of where these small companies are at.
Yeah, it's a good thought. I'll share a little bit when I talk about fame and things that we're thinking about there. All right. We'll move on to any program changes that we need to talk about. Lynn, we're good?
We're all set. Thanks, Rick.
Okay. How about privilege of the floor? Anybody else have anything they want to share with what's going on in their community? All right, then we'll get to the committee updates. Now, a lot of these committees haven't met since our last meeting, so some of these updates are going to go rather quick. Finance and audit. Debbie, Mr. Doblin's not here today.
He is not here today, and the committee has not met, as you just alluded to.
Okay.
We do have a meeting next Wednesday, though, however, and shortly we'll be starting to work on the PY23 budgets. We don't have any inclinations yet what our allocations might be, but as soon as we do, we could pass that on. And I just wanted to share with everybody, I think most people know that our staff accountant, Jordan, has left us for a full-time job, and we were able to fill it with Bobby Jo Belia, and she started last week, and I'd just like to welcome her to the board.
Thank you. Welcome, Bobby. All right, Mark, governance and membership, Mr. Manikowski. You're muted.
There. Can you hear me now, Mr.
Yep.
Chairman?
Yeah.
Yeah, I spoke to Lynn about this before the meeting started. We haven't had a meeting of the governance and membership in a while, but in terms of membership, we're in very good shape. There's a Seneca County vacancy, and Lynn reported to me that in February, there's a meeting with ITT Goulds where a replacement for some of the great people we've had from that company should be forthcoming. And I believe, Lynn, with that, we'll be in pretty good shape.
Yep, at that point, we'll be a full board. Thanks.
That's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Marketing and communications. Pete?
We have not met since our last meeting, and actually, I think we had left it saying that we would circle back this month to try to figure out our meeting frequency and calendar for this coming year. So we'll have an update next meeting.
All right, thanks. Performance and evaluation. Ms. Baker?
Our next meeting is scheduled in February, and I'm going to defer to Mike Wilson for any updates.
Well, like the other great committees, we took December off, but like Kathy said, we'll be meeting again next month.
All right, thank you. Economic development, Mr. Manikowski?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We, I believe the last meeting, and Mike, you have to help me with this, is when we had GRE in to meet with the group.
Yes.
Greater Rochester Enterprise. So we're due to get a topic and an agenda together sometime, I believe, in the first quarter, Mike. So
Yes.
we really have no follow-ups or anything else to report, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Youth Committee, Ms. Parrish.
Okay, my committee met, and Drea did a fine job of running the meeting for me because I have no excuse. It totally slipped my mind. But she provided me with some great notes from the meeting, draft minutes. So I believe they discussed a little bit of mental health training because I asked that it be kept on the forefront of topics at every committee meeting, since I think it's a huge concern for youth of all ages. And especially, I'm seeing some notes here that the training that's available through the Wayne County Partnership starts with age 12, which is an interesting point to me because I think that some of these mental health issues are going to hit the younger kids more than we may think they do. They may not reflect what's affecting them publicly or present, in the present, but I think it can lead to an impact later on as they grow through school. So I hope that we didn't identify a bad thing and we can come up with good things. But there were some good questions and it sounds like some good conversations around those things. Local community resources were discussed with the attendees of the committee meeting regarding training opportunities and transportation solutions available in the local area, which is a good thing for us to talk about because I think sometimes those things get forgotten and there may be an easy resource that can solve a problem for any youth counselor or somebody that's involved in youth work. The We Owe a Youth program for the program year 2022 was discussed, and some hefty conversation around the room about the in-school and out-of-school youth programs was on the agenda. As always, I invite everyone to reach out if they'd like to attend. We always welcome people to come to those meetings. Our next meeting is Wednesday, March 9th at 3 o'clock. We will probably do it via Zoom with an in-person option depending on the climate at that moment. Thank you.
Lori,
right.
I do want to add to that, and it just may be that you haven't cycled into this meeting update yet, but Works with Their Hands event. Drea, do you want to give a quick update on the date there?
Oh, yes, I meant to do that. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Lori, go ahead.
No, I don't want to do it. I want Drea to do it.
Okay.
Yes, I can do it. So Finger Lakes Works with Their Hands was originally scheduled to be in March. We have decided to push that back. So the new date will be May 25th, 2022. I sent out a blast of information to anyone and everyone that was on an email list from any year possible. If you didn't get that, I will forward that to you. It will be held at Finger Lakes Community College. It will still be the 3 industries that are all done in one event. We just pushed it back, so maybe it will be 70 and sunny on March 25th as well. Then one more update from the youth committee meeting. We did talk about success stories, and I know internally at the WIB we were talking about getting additional success stories. So one of the youth counselors from Yates County provided just a quick update on someone who has been in the youth program since 2019 when they were in school. Stayed in school, did some of the online college, and it really wasn't for them. So they did a work experience at a local childcare center. And now at this time, they actually transitioned to the adult WIOA program, got full-time employment, and is now doing an on-the-job training at the same childcare facility. So it just shows that, working the program from youth, there is a connection with all of what WIOA is doing. So try to talk about all of these more positive things when we talk about how there's, little to no workforce. So turn it on the positive note.
Okay. Thank you very much for that update for Youth Committee. A lot going on there. FAME update. There's not a whole lot going on with FAME. We have been having a conversation coming back to Lori's point about jobs and job quality and wages. We've been having a conversation around job quality and how to bring some tools to the community that, or an assessment tool that companies could use to do a self-assessment and see how they're doing and where they have strengths and where they have weaknesses and try to address those weaknesses. In addition, FAME will be meeting with Causeway beginning early February to go through a process of establishing a future strategic direction for the organization. Many of the original goals of FAME have been met. And so now we're just kind of taking a step back to assess what the needs are of the community and what we should be doing going forward. With that, we'll move on to the director's report. Ms. Reed?
Thank you, Mr. Plimpton. We have been putting out in our social media, the governor has put out a Nurses for Our Future scholarship program. So there's a snippet about what that is. Basically, individuals have an opportunity to apply for a full scholarship to a nursing degree. We'll include that in the notes with the meeting so that everyone has that readily accessible to them. We are continuing to work on the Disabilities Resource Coordinator. We're in the final stages of finalizing our plan and getting that in. So hopefully we'll have more to report out on that in the March meeting. We're also involved in the 9-county region Good Jobs Challenge. There's a focus on 3 industries, one being healthcare, second being labor and construction careers, and third advanced manufacturing. So we've been busy reaching out to a lot of our training partners to make sure that our regional local training programs are included in order to be able to be applied for should we be an awardee of this specific grant. I'm going to go back to the KSA training program. Folks had asked for different types of online training. We did a little bit of feedback on that. Mike Willison and I met with them earlier in this month, and we have samples based on the feedback that we got from the survey. So if you're interested in that, take a look. You can reach out to them directly. If you're interested in cohort type of training programs where you can share, the cost of the program would still be the same, but if there's 2, 3, or 4 employers, they're going to allow that cost to be shared. Everyone's not paying it individually, so there's a potential for some good cost savings there. Let me know and we'll make sure that we get that to you. Lastly, our partners NIATEP have come out with diversity, equity, and inclusion survey. They're doing a statewide survey. After this board meeting, that'll be part of the notes. It's already gone out to our workforce and supportive services partner, but they're also looking for industry folks to respond to that as well. The intent of the survey is to collect the data to see where New York State is. So anyone that it does take about 30 to 40 minutes. It's a pretty comprehensive, a little bit longer in-depth survey. But if you have the time and you can share that information, it's going to be used for a statewide report, and we'll have that sent out with the meeting notes as well. Thank you, Mr. Plimpton.
All right, thank you. So next we'll have a presentation on FLCC GRIP program. I don't believe Dr. Nye is with us this morning, but we do have Todd Sloan, Director of Workforce and Career Solutions, who is with us here today.
Thank you, Mr. Plimpton. Good morning, everyone. Yes, I'm Todd Sloan. I'm the Director of Workforce and Career Solutions. Dr. Nye and Jonathan Kaiser send their regrets. They had another commitment this morning. So what I wanted to do this morning is give you really focus on the Finger Lakes GRIP program as the agenda mentions. But since I haven't spoke to the group in a while, I wanted to share a couple success stories and some of the things that have been going on since COVID as well, and just give you an update on workforce at the college. I'm going to take a moment and see. Is it all right to screen share? It looks like I might close the agenda out if I do that.
I've made you co-host, Todd.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so we have actually been quite busy throughout COVID within our department. Obviously, that COVID has impacted the
Myra, because I'm helping Andrew with the mask.
Oh, somebody may have their mic open, just so y'all know.
Hi, Randy. I think you're not muted. There you go. Thank you. Thanks, Todd.
Sure, no problem. But we have been busy. Some of the initiatives we already had in place pre-COVID, we were able to continue, and we just took the opportunity to adapt. So the focus has been in the last couple of years, completely.
Joe Davis, you're unmuted.
Oh. I'm muted.
I just talked louder and I never heard anyone, but I'll wait and make sure everyone's all
Well,
set.
yeah, let's just take a moment to appreciate the new virtual remote world that we live in. And sometimes these happen and it's okay. So let's just take a moment to appreciate that. The world still goes on. We're still going to have these meetings. And a very gentle reminder that if you have not already muted yourself, please do so. And we'll get back to Todd's great update here on the GRIT program. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you, Lynn. So this is an outline of what I wanted to talk about. Our focus has been very in alignment with the WIBs and the college's strategic plan, which is all about high growth sectors and in-demand occupations. We have now a lot going on in terms of projects within the department. I think when I started a couple of years ago, 4 years ago now, we were managing a couple grants. We now manage 12 grants of varying sizes in the department. And some of these are going to be very exciting for partnering with Lynn and the WIB. So without further ado, a couple reminders of our areas we focus on. This shouldn't be a surprise to anyone here. The 4 sectors we focus on in the department are here. I do want to point out healthcare has been a major sector for us for a long time, as has advanced manufacturing. And back on this particular slide you're looking at, these kind of are in the order of the programs that have been most longstanding to those that we're just developing and launching now going forward. But we now do have training in all 4 of our most important sectors in the region. This year we have launched a very well-known industry credential in IT called Amazon Web Services certifications. This is a set of 4 certifications that are tied to exceptionally high-paying jobs in IT. And those programs will be offered both as workforce programs or credit programs for traditional students or workforce applications. We have actually brought back, many have probably heard of COMP, TIAA+, but our employers have told us that despite how long that has been around, IT is like a field where everything changes every 5 minutes. But despite the fact that that has been around for a long time, it's still a very important credential. And what's been very exciting during COVID, and it's really been kind of through necessity, the WIOA staff have funded 2 skilled trades online trainings that we offer in HVAC and residential electrician. And those have had excellent success. They've been small scale. I think we had 4 in the residential electrician program, but they've all found jobs or advanced in their existing jobs in the trade. So that's really promising. We see that as maybe a possibility for a pre-apprenticeship program that could allow us to partner with some of our local trades or local unions. Talk a little bit more in depth about healthcare and advanced manufacturing. In healthcare, we developed a lattice, and I just like to point out that there's a number of WIB board organizations and the WIB itself that helped contribute to this. We convened the Healthcare Alliance group, and our employer partners looked at the subsectors in healthcare from the WIB annual reports and New York State labor market information and developed a career lattice. And this really, what this does is provides employers and students or potential students an opportunity to look at the occupations that are have long-term growth for them and the pathways within the sectors for advancement. And what we're seeing now with the labor market tightening, and also I think there's a change in our younger generations of employees, let's say, and high school graduates. They're less willing to make a long-term commitment, take out potential student loans, and say, I'm going to go make a decision about my life and go to school for 2, 4, or 6 years and be, for lack of a better word, stuck with that. So these lattices and ladders and pathways are critical. They're critical for employers because an individual can get into the workplace in a very short amount of time. And an employee does not have to make a long-term commitment to education and say, oops, I made the wrong choice and now I have all this debt. It allows them to get in the workplace, get some experience, and then decide where they want to move to from there. This pathway is really exciting because all of the occupations on the pathway are in demand for our local WIB, for our REDIC, and at the state level. And the college actually now, just so you're aware, in our department, we offer training in all of these programs with the exception of LPN. And we will probably have an LPN program when we finish the building of our allied healthcare wing, which is under construction now. Sorry about that. That was not anyone else's mic. That was my mic and my phone going off. Okay. So a second area that I just wanted to focus a little more on is advanced manufacturing, because we have also focused on micro pathways in advanced manufacturing. And a micro pathway is simply what I touched on before. It is a pathway that lets someone complete a training in 3 to 9 months, be ready for employment in an in-demand occupation in that short amount of time, but then also positions them that when and if they want to advance into a job that requires more education, they can do that seamlessly. I'm really thrilled to say part of the GRIT project, we actually are implementing this pathway. And this is an advanced manufacturing pathway. And the approach we've taken at the college is kind of unique. In some locations, and particularly at larger colleges, less rural colleges, you might have 15 programs for 15 different occupations in advanced manufacturing. But in a rural community, that is usually more challenging because small employers need people who can do a variety of things. If you have a few thousand employees and you're in the city of Albany or Troy, then you can easily have people that just specialize on one thing. That's much more difficult in our area. So the approach we've taken is we are offering a certified production technician training and another new training we've launched called Foundations in Advanced Manufacturing. Both of those are linked to 15 in-demand occupations, and they provide the competencies for anywhere from 60% to 100% of those occupations. So they allow somebody to get to work quickly and be in a high growth occupation. Even if they never advanced or got any further training in their life, they would be on a path to employment that is long-term and that has rapid advancement. So this little graph, I know it's a little bit small, but this is a really useful micro pathway graph. You're going to see more of these coming from us at the college. Basically, you have time on the horizontal line here and income on the vertical line. And the blue boxes are training programs that we offer. And the green boxes are income information on the in-demand occupations for which they'd be eligible. So on the horizontal axis, you can see traditionally someone, if they wanted to get their AAS degree in Smart Systems Technology, which is a great program, they can do that in 24 months. And that opens up the door to 4 different technologist positions with the pay you see there. But what we've done now is we've actually added 2 programs that allow people to complete and get into other in-demand occupations sooner. And that's the Certified Production Technician and the Foundations in Advanced Manufacturing. And I lost my mouse. Here we go. Actually, I'm just going to pause here and open it up to any questions on any programming in those in-demand sectors. And then I'll talk a little bit about the projects and funding sources that we are focusing on here.
Todd, do you mind sharing this with us after the meeting?
Not at all. No, I'm happy to. In fact, I didn't send it out beforehand, Erica, because if you have any comments or notes, I'll add them and then I'll send those to Jen. Should I send those to Jen? Is that appropriate? Okay, will do.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Okay, with that said, let me talk about projects. This is a quick summary of what we've been up to. One of the big shifts we made in advanced manufacturing during COVID was, as some of you know, our very well known and really excellent example of like a public-private partnership, our program in advanced manufacturing machinists, that was paused because our employers could not bring people in. You know, it was enough to keep operations up and running. And and they legally could not bring guests or unemployed folks or outside individuals into their training. So we felt the impact of that. And in fact, that particular program was hit more than others. So that program we're hoping to bring back with our partners, hopefully in 2022. We're still having conversations about it, but we also wanted to be in a position where advanced manufacturing could really come to the employer rather than requiring that the student come to where the training is. So we shifted and really focused on customized training. We have now, we've had this for some time, but we're really emphasizing this this year. And please, for your advanced manufacturing companies, particularly your smaller ones, encourage you to reach out to us. The Suny Workforce Grant, we've been using for a long time. In fact, we have some former employees who know all about it here that are on the call today, who've really been a champion of the program. That allows us to push into employers and do on-site training. And it's roughly a 35-65 funding lift. So if the employer can come up with 35% of the cost of training, the grant pays the rest. And that's conservative. In some cases, that split can be even more advantageous to the employer. We've also been working with Suny. We are a statewide project lead for developing curriculum in advanced manufacturing. That's on the horizon, just an FYI, but it means that probably 50 to 100 credit hours of new advanced manufacturing training will be coming to the Finger Lakes as a result of that project. And that will wrap up in 2022. Another ongoing grant, we do safety training, a lot of compliance and safety training through the New York State Department of Labor Hazard Abatement Board. This year, we funded 6 employers for that and about 1,000 hours of training. It's not a huge grant, but again, that is also something that can help offset costs for employers. And then lastly, we do employee development through Wayne County DSS, Seneca County DSS. It's a really cool collaborative project. Their employment directors and our team sit down and develop an employment plan. And then the Office of Child and Family Services at the state can help them offset the cost of training. Wow, there's a lot of information on this slide. I'm going to just keep moving. In terms of program development, I'm really pleased to say that as I was touching on earlier, one of the things we've learned in the last couple of years, and particularly through the Bridges project, which I'll talk about more in depth, is the importance of place when it comes to training. And that means the individual learner, for the individual learner, transportation and place is a huge issue. We have 4 campus centers, which is actually pretty good for many community colleges, and it is also not enough. We go from Lake Ontario to Yates County. It's a huge area. So one of our major goals is bringing training to the learners and to the employers. If an employer can get to Canandaigua or if an employee rather can get to Canandaigua for training, it doesn't mean they can get to their employer of choice. If they can get to an employer they want to work at, can they get to Canandaigua for training? This is not a given. So the goal will be to deploy training in the same communities where the learners and the students are. And the dream at FLCC is CARES Act money we've received in the amount of $165,000. And what that will do is allow us to deploy literally labs in a box. The focus will be advanced manufacturing. In this box will be a laptop, so learners won't need their own equipment. In this box will be a set of tools for advanced manufacturing, precision measurement tools, hand tools, microscopes, that kind of thing, and a set of VR headsets, so that any kind of work they need to do that would simulate working with larger equipment is done in a VR space. I touched already on WIOA funding, the pilot for the skilled trades programs. As I mentioned, that was 4 students and they all have either landed their job. Most of them were actually like laborers who were looking to work more independently or get a promotion to a supervisor or foreperson, foreman role. And they all succeeded with that through the employer referral and through the WIBS funding of their training. Our healthcare career lattice and our advanced manufacturing programs are all funded by the WIB. Thank you very much. And we built those intentionally so that they would align with those in-demand occupations. And it's really been a great partnership. We've actually gotten some really good feedback from the WIB too, in terms of where they're seeing better placement rates and where they're seeing placement rates that aren't as good. I'm going to pause there again before I talk about bridges. Questions or comments? All right, you got the official pause. I'm going to move on then. So Rural Bridges is a national design challenge that the college won. It is funded by the Educational Design Lab, which is a national organization, and the Ascendium Group. And the challenge, the design challenge itself, is all about how can we strengthen the capacity of rural community colleges to serve as economic engines for learners and their communities. That's entirely the focus. It was a national competition, and Finger Lakes Community College was one of 5 colleges you see here that received the award. And traditionally, the way this organization works, the Educational Design Lab and the Ascendium Group, it is a design challenge. So literally it's about research and getting to know individuals, potential learners, getting to know employers, getting to know community members, sort of what are our strengths and our challenges, and then developing a prototype for a prototype project that is not only beneficial locally to the community, but then becomes a national, you could say, prototype or a national best practice that other colleges can use. And we are now in the 3rd of 4 phases with this. We are about to launch our prototype, and it's exciting. It's getting a lot of attention nationally. It's been an incredible project in terms of partnering with the WIB and partnering with our community members. So I'll just give you a summary of that. We call it GRIT, which is Growing Rural Infrastructure Together. And these were the 3 challenges that we identified through about 6 months of surveys and research with all the folks that I mentioned a moment ago. And the 3 big challenges were transportation, broadband access, and even when there is good broadband access, which we actually have in a couple of our counties, we are way ahead of the game in compared to some rural areas. There still is sometimes an issue with personal, just having the technology to study at home, even if you've got access. And then again, the other issue is sometimes where I live is not close to the employer I want to work with. Sometimes it is, but again, many folks who have access to education don't necessarily have access to the employers who are hiring. Secondly, the time to employment was too long for many. We see this again with the younger generation, and there's absolutely a sense of immediacy. I want to be qualified for a job now, and hesitance to commit. I want to explore. I want to get into a field, see what it's like first, and then decide where I want to go from there. And then lastly, we saw this particularly with potential learners who tend to shy away from higher education. There's fear, and there's a lack of knowledge about how to navigate this system. Just applying for financial aid is intimidating, let alone walking into a college, let alone once you're there, how do I access the tools and resources I need? And we learned from our existing students that the ones who had the most successful experience were the ones who just had a person they could talk to about anything, instead of 20 people to talk to about 20 different things. So these challenges, so to speak, really fed into Finger Lakes GRIT and the model that we're piloting now. And it has 3 elements. The first is ensuring that programs are relevant to local employers and available to individuals locally. And then bringing those programs to those communities. It's incredible. This project, what I learned is that people in the Finger Lakes love the Finger Lakes. Almost anyone that we surveyed who left or was considering leaving the region left because they felt there wasn't a good opportunity for employment. And there is, obviously. And so we realized that most people who live here want to stay here. They just want a good job nearby. Then the second thing we did in terms of the GRIT project is we based it on a micro pathway like I showed you a moment ago. We wanted to ensure that someone could get into an in-demand occupation, have the knowledge and skills they needed, but the first step wasn't 2 years from now. The first step was 3 to 9 months from now. And then lastly, we didn't want someone to have to go through 20 web pages or drive to Canandaigua and discover that the office was closed that day. We wanted them to have one person who was their support person. So we're deploying that for the GRIT program. When from the time someone says they're interested to the time they apply, throughout their training and through preparation for job finding, they work with one person. We were calling them a personal concierge during the pilot. We're now calling them a coach. So that is the model. And what we did is this last fall, we put a call out through our network, any of our networks and organizations that had employers or community organization as members. And we said, would you like to be a GRIT site? And the GRIT sites, what the college does is we deploy a large screen Cisco dual two-way audio video technology. And the site agrees to host training. They commit to 6 to 9 hours a week of making a room available and the same amount of time of having it as an open study area for students and space for up to 12 learners. And then they can bring training to their location and the college provides the technology. And the tremendous thing about this is that this eliminates the need for smaller communities or smaller employers to field a large group of students. Because if as you know, in training, the biggest cost is the instructor. And so usually there's a minimum enrollment associated with training. But by having the instructor be remote and teaching to several of these GRIT sites, now you can have a training with 3 or 4 students and in another location, another 3 or 4, and another location 1 or 2. And now you have local access to training that never would have happened before. So we are piloting this. The program is actually starting in next week, next Tuesday, the 25th. The program we chose for the pilot is the Certified Production Technician Plus. And that is because that program is, again, linked to 15 in-demand occupations, and they'll have it completed in 16 weeks. By May 17th is the actual end date. This slide has the sort of the pilot information. And these are our 2 official GRIT sites. If there was a little emoji for hand clapping, it would be going off right now. So we had 14 organizations apply to be a site. They were all really good. The Educational Design Lab, the funding for the project really could only pilot 2 sites. So we're starting with Bloomfield Central School District. They have purpose-built a community learning lab, which has some great high-tech technology in it. And the other location is the Yates County Workforce Development Office. And we've already deployed our big screen WebEx technology in both of those locations. They've been tested. We have 13 learners that will be attending. I believe we have 5 in Yates County, 4 in Bloomfield, and then we have 4 learners who will be studying from home. We gave them that option as long as we could do a little test of their internet connection and their technology. So this is tremendous. I mean, there could not have been a class in Yates County with only 5 students. It wouldn't have met the minimum enrollment. There could not have been a class in Bloomfield with that number of students. So we're now providing access to all of these learners who would not have had it before. And as you know, there are employers who will hire these people in a heartbeat. Penn Yan has an industrial complex there. We work with most of those employers, and they're already saying, when can we come in and talk to these students? And similarly, Bloomfield. So that is the model for GRIT. The way we will scale this, and I couldn't be more excited about this. The way this will scale over time is very simply by adding locations, by adding the types of sites that are I'm going to call them GRIT sites, and the number of communities. So a site could be one of our campus centers. It could be a workforce development office, a school district, but it could be an employer. If there's an employer who has a training space and is willing to open that room up for not only employees, but for also open enrollment members of the public, they could host training through FLCC and actually be bringing in members of the public who could be potential employees for them. Community-based organizations are another option. And we had several applications from libraries, which are an excellent, we think they'll be an excellent location for this type of a program as well. So the great news is we are launching it now. We have these 2 sites on board, and we do have, the college has recently received a national grant from the Lumina Foundation, which will allow us to deploy 2 more sites in 2022. Those we're very early on. We haven't identified those, and we're gonna put a call out for people to apply. But hopefully that'll include some regions that are a little more remote from our campus centers at present. So with that said, I'm going to pause there for questions, comments on the GRIT model, or anything else.
Hey, Todd.
Yeah.
It's great to see how excited you are about this. I really hope it goes well. When do you think you'll be looking at doing additional sites?
Probably the second half of 2022. Yeah, that's the time frame for this Lumina grant. The first half of the year will be design and planning, and then the second half will be deployment of the sites, and then the first half of 2023 will be delivery.
All right. Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Todd, Mike Manikowski here. Very impressive. Could you work with maybe contact Sue? We need to get your presentation in front of our Economic Development Corporation. And I think we may be able to pair some of our funding with what you're doing, especially back to that 35-65, to help out qualified employers reduce their local share. So if you'll contact Sue, and we'll get you on the agenda.
Excellent. Will do, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I'm particularly interested from folks here what your sort of reaction is to this, to the GRIT model itself. And that would include, obviously I'm excited about it. As Rick said, we put a lot of work into it, but any concerns or questions or thoughts on that might help us inform how we grow it.
Todd.
I do
this
have a
is Erica.
question.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Erica.
I think that this is wonderful, and realizing or putting a program together that hits those people that can't get to campus, or they could get to an employer but they can't get to training, transportation. If we're having problems finding people, if we find people, we can't get them to our site or get them there reliably or consistently. So I think this is really great, and getting them the training will allow them to make more, and then comes the ability to get reliable transportation. It's kind of a snowball effect. So great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, my question is relative to the model. I do like the looks of this model. I think it could be really, really successful. I'm interested in knowing, can it be applied to other areas of on-demand occupations like customer service, administrative, retail, tourism, hospitality, those kind of things?
I am so glad you asked that question. The answer is yes. And that was an oversight on my part, because this very slide should talk about exactly that. So it's not just about locations and sites, but it's about programs. So we're already talking with Yates County about other programming they'd like to bring that is locally relevant to their employers. So 100%. The goal of the college is to deploy these sites and keep these sites locally, so that then the content we deliver will be driven by the local needs. 100%. Yep. Thank you.
Great, great. I think that's why Mike's importance of bringing it out to the workforce developments in all the counties is important, so that they recognize how connected all these things are. I was especially struck by the comments you made about the surveys coming back that there were no opportunities here for people. How can that be an interpretation? Where is the disconnect there? You hit on something that's pretty important, I think.
Yeah, that was a really tough one to hear when we saw that coming out of the focus groups. We even had them say, I'd like a job in X field, but there's none here. And X field was one of our high growth sectors. So it's not across the board, but we definitely discovered there's some work to do to raise awareness about the opportunities locally.
Excellent, thanks.
Sure. Okay, I just have 2 quick slides on where we're heading to. I don't talk to you that often. I hope I'm doing okay for time. How am I doing here, Lynn or Rick? Am I okay on the agenda? I see yeses. Okay, great. So I just wanted to let you know where we're heading. And I am very excited. We have really leveraged COVID, and that I always hesitate to say that, but we did. We just said, okay, this is a constraint we're given, and from constraint comes creativity. So we've converted almost all of our programming now to hybrid, and we have positioned ourselves to deliver those programs. Are we where we were before COVID? No. In healthcare, we are. that never slowed down at all. But in some other sectors, we're still building back, but we are extremely well positioned. We just received a renewal of our funding for WIOA Title II. And that is also part of workforce development now at the college. We kind of restructured. And so that means that our adult basic education, our GED, our TASK program will continue through 2027. It's really critical for those individuals who don't even necessarily always meet the minimum requirements for these in-demand jobs. The conversion to hybrid meant we had the largest graduating class yet of our TASK. It's kind of cool that our FLCC graduation of TASK students is comparable to some of our graduating classes of our local high schools. It's pretty neat. And then on the horizon, we just received notification a few weeks ago from Suny that we are going to be a recipient of a Reimagine grant. The grants are called Reimagine New York. And so we'll be focusing on Reimagine Finger Lakes. This is super well timed because this is almost exclusively funding that will pay for tuition reimbursement in demand occupations. So every sector and occupation you saw in today's slides will be eligible for funding for learners in this area. And I should mention, this includes employed individuals. As long as the individual is likely to get a raise or advance with their existing employer at the end of training, they don't have to be unemployed or meet an income test. They just have to either enter an in-demand field or advance in the field. And this is going to provide some great synergy with the WIB. I think, and Lynn and I, to be completely transparent, we haven't talked in depth about this yet, but we see some opportunities to share funding in these occupations where it can enhance the performance measures of both organizations and sort of like basically lower our cost per participant to get someone into training. So it's very exciting. The PACE grant, I did mention that specifically is about adult learners, and that will allow us to launch 2 new grit sites. And then the last 2 programs that are on the horizon, some of you may have heard about it. It's still early on, but Finger Lakes Preferred Provider Service has contracted with Monroe Community College for a regional effort. We'll be a subcontractor on that, which will focus specifically on in-demand occupations in healthcare. And then the Good Job Challenge, we will be participating in that. That's still in the process of being written. But if as a region, as a 9-county region, if we receive that, that'll have a significant impact on all these sectors and occupations. So that.
And I just, Todd, I'm going to
what I
pop
got.
in here. I just kind of want to add some local regional activity that's happening at the career centers. So going back, you made a comment on the horizon and, partnering and working together to, what's it going to take? So I just want to share locally, Ontario County is either at or surpassed their OJTs already for this year. So we'll have another, we'll make sure that funding stays there so that they're able to continue that work. But we're starting to see movement and things are starting to happen. Likewise, we've heard folks are coming forward with the youth when there's a gap and what that looks like to overcome that. This information is really important. And employers, we get used to what the wheel looked like yesterday, but COVID and the pandemic and remote work and everything else that we've lived through for the last coming up on 2 years here, the square peg isn't necessarily fitting anymore. Things can't change unless we get that feedback from you. So we're starting to collect that anecdotally. Legislative season is upon us. So as we start talking to the legislators, hearing the needs and what's going to work going into the future, the challenges are the same and they're different. So, continuing to do the same thing without success and being told that's not the right way, I think we have an opportunity to start sharing that information. So we're gathering this information and there's been a lot of innovation and shifting, a lot of research into the federal and state laws, what we can and cannot do. Another example I'll share is, healthcare workers that chose not to get the vaccination, they're showing up at the career centers and to where they can get employed. So there are other industries out. So, and this connected, directly to individuals with disabilities industry that is also looking, and has a great significant need for credentialed healthcare workers. So pivoting quickly, things that normally didn't align, where are the gaps? So it's all really good, rich information. We're collecting it all. And as we get into legislative season, we have an opportunity to start sharing that information to make sure, and that's how policy and change is impacted and affected. So keep talking. It's all a live wire, but it's important information and things are shifting. Thank you, Todd.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. Any other questions or comments before I turn it back to the chair? Thank you, everyone, for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Todd. It's a really exciting program. All right, moving on. New business consent agenda. Why don't we take these as a block? We'll approve everything at one time. But Lynn, can you give us an overview of the resolutions?
Sure can. So we've talked a little bit about the OJT policy, and here's an example of a little bit shift and change. So it was time for it to be updated, but we took a little bit extra time. Again, I want to thank the business service representatives. We spent several months going through this line item by line item to make sure that it was specific and relevant to today and what's happening today. So there are a little bit more significant changes that have been there in the past. This went out to finance and audit for approval. It went through performance and evaluation for approval. So here it is at the board for full board approval. So that is the revised up to date on the job training resolution before you. And the other one is training programs. This is another common one that we do, and very, very happy to say with our good higher education partner, Cupid College. We've got 5 different programs. Pete talked a little bit about these prior. So here are 5 programs that we want to make sure that are added to our trainer provider offering list. Any questions on either of those? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks. With that, can I get a motion to approve the minutes and these resolutions?
So moved. Second. Mike Manikowski, second.
Okay, thank you. Everybody in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Any nays?
I heard two voices for the first.
Oh, I think
And we
Pete
saw
was,
a couple hands.
Yeah, it was Pete. I said at the same time as Mike.
Okay, well, you're going in the minutes.
all right. Are we all set there? What I heard, everybody was in favor. Thank you.
Agreed.
Okay. Any other business? Anybody wants to raise while we're here? Any announcements in the community we should be aware of? Okay, hearing none. Next meeting will be Wednesday, March 16th. And looks like we'll do it via Zoom again. Unfortunately, but hopefully everybody stay healthy, stay warm, and we'll see you in March. So with that,
Sounds
we'll
good.
adjourn the meeting. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Bye all.
Bye
Great
now.
rest of your week.